because the pace at which the cloud environment is changing, you guys need to you guys need to have your ear to the ground. It's not like you have an army out there that's checking and asking questions, and
Yep.
But it is refreshing all the time to kind of be able to have that. So
Good. Thank you so much for that.
yeah, no, it's been great. Although I'm not sure. I tease Goodrich all the time. Like at some point, did you get tired of taking my calls? He politically correctly said no. He appreciated the information that we were bringing.
Oh, I'll tell you some stories over a coffee sometime, Chris.
Perfect. So yeah, so at 9 o'clock, I'll start it off, and then walk through, and then we'll just kind of step through. And I have a feeling that we'll have plenty of content to cover over over the course of this this discussion. So real quick, did you get your new fridge then? Or are you still in the old
we're still waiting. Still waiting.
Okay.
But fortunately it's cold out. So, I basically took 2 roasting pans and filled them with water, and I stick them outside overnight. And
there you go.
I have 2 that I rotate. And so, then every morning I just swap them out, or every night I swap them out.
Yeah, that's my grandmother's refrigerator. Bring it out, bring things outside in the winter or in the garage.
Yep.
So that way, that way folks don't, the animals don't get to it. All right, so we're going to get started here. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to ATARC Cloud and Coffee, the place for discussions on all things modernization and transformation. My name is Chris Oglesby with MorphWorks, and unfortunately, my co-host Terry Lee is out sick today. Before the introductions, I wanted to chat about this platform. It's hosted under the Cloud and Infrastructure pillar with a goal of bringing lessons learned and ideas to the ATARC community. Our focus will be on a conversation about our guests' experiences, past, present, executing modernization and transformation efforts. As you guys are in the audience watching the screen, at the bottom there is a Q&A button. Please feel free to enter in questions, and I will work those into the chat as we move through. So now let's move into introductions. Today our guest is Brian Conrad, the Acting Director of FedRAMP and Secure Cloud Division at GSA. Brian, would you mind sharing a little with the audience about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Chris. Thank you to ATARC for having me. Good morning to everyone out. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm Brian Conrad. I'm the Acting Director of FedRAMP. I've been in the federal service for about 3 years. I joined the FedRAMP PMO originally as the Cybersecurity Program Manager, a hat which I still wear. And then prior to that, I was with Booz Allen Hamilton for roughly 7 years. And then before that, spent some significant time in the military. So I'm glad to be here, glad to talk about FedRAMP and all the great things that the FedRAMP team is doing.
Well, which is outstanding, I think, for our community, since it's a mix of both government and industry. It's always good to have folks that have perspective on both sides. So let's get started. So Brian, I think one of the biggest items for FedRAMP in 2022, obviously besides Rev 5, is something that I hold personal to my professional career, and that's the 10-year landmark of the program. So wondered if we could spend a little time on kind of the then and now of the program, and get your perspective, and just chat about its start and its current state and its future state. So
sure. Like you mentioned,
keep that a little open.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, like you mentioned, the 10th anniversary of the OMB memo creating FedRAMP was this past December 8th. And so, we're really, really excited to celebrate that milestone, especially with the, considering taking a look back and considering all the growth of the program. We've seen nothing but steady growth in those 10 years. And, if you think about it, the cybersecurity landscape is continually changing over that same period of time, right? So in the first, just to give you a little context, in the first 4 years of the program, we authorized only 20 cloud service offerings. In 2018, we reached the 100 mark, and just 2 years after that, we doubled the 100. So presently, we're up to 247 authorized cloud services in our catalog, and that reflects FedRAMP's commitment to government agencies to help them transform. And I've said this before, that FedRAMP sits in a really cool place, that we're in the nexus between cloud service providers who are bringing on new technology, and those agencies that are working to implement that and modernize. And it's a really cool place to be, and it's really great to play such an integral part in that too. The things that other things that have happened, we've looked at our business processes. If you look back at the end of 2016, we created, or FedRAMP created, the FedRAMP Accelerated program, and that went into full operational capability in 2017, and that is now the current JAB process for cloud service providers coming through to work with the JAB. And because of that change, we're able to reduce the JAB authorization timeline from what was 12 to 24 months down to under 6 months. So from kickoff with a cloud service provider working with the Joint Authorization Board to the time that they get their signed ATO letters in their hands, it's less than 6 months. And just in comparison, that's a huge benefit to the government, because the cloud services are taking less time to get through the process. They're being made available sooner to be leveraged by federal agencies. The other things we've done is we've evolved our baselines to provide efficiency and flexibility while maintaining security rigor. We've included at the beginning, there wasn't a high baseline. There is now. We actually have 4. We have high, moderate, low, and the low impact, or the tailored baseline. Interestingly, about 80% of the offerings in our catalog are at the moderate baseline, but we're seeing an increase of more and more cloud services, even through the agency authorization path, coming in with high authorizations. And that's a little bit of a change that we're seeing a little bit in the market as well. And the other cool thing is we continue to leverage ideas from our partners. We were chatting a little bit about this before we went live, but the way that FedRAMP thrives is just getting ideas and input from our stakeholder community, agencies, and cloud service providers, and the third-party assessors. And back in November 2019, we had an event called JAB Interact, where we basically had those cloud service providers that were working with the JAB come in and have like a mini industry day. It was an opportunity for them to talk directly to the JAB technical representatives, and then talk in groups about issues, pain points, stuff like that. And the big realization that we came out from that, and it was blatantly obvious, but all the cloud service providers that we have in the catalog are so incredibly rich in talent. And we would be remiss if we didn't reach out to them consistently to make sure that we're getting feedback on things that they're doing, things that are state of the art of the industry, ways that we could potentially support their growth, and in doing so, support agencies' adoption of these technologies too. We have several engagement channels to do that. That we originally started out with our ideation challenge a couple of years ago. We do an annual survey in the JAB lane. I do one-on-ones with most, sometimes all, but we try and get all, but most of the JAB authorized cloud service providers. Again, it's in service to getting feedback and seeing where those things are that are sticky for our stakeholders.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, again, having been involved with it since prior to the OMB memo being signed, the inception of the idea, I do believe that, and this is what we were chatting about, that if you look at transformation, one of the keys for, I do believe for any organization, whether government or private sector, is getting an understanding of what's going on, right? Because there are so many people doing different things. If you just kind of focus in on this is what the product says, or this is what this company says, I don't think you open the aperture. And I think from a transformation standpoint, you guys have always been good at opening that aperture to understand all of the pieces. One of the things, though, that I also think that you were critical on is because of the role that the PMO has, is that communication. So, communication with industry, communication with agency partners, communication with, you name it, there's a number of different pieces. How do you guys manage, I guess from a, both a lessons learned as well as an offering for those that might be listening? How do you guys manage to make sure that you kind of have that consistency in the communication?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, right? And talk about feedback. Some of the things that we hear from the stakeholder community is about our guidance. It's too broad. It's not specific enough. The challenge that we have, and so we need to find that sweet spot that's right between guardrails, right? And that's what I often refer to our policies are as guardrails. We have different technologies, we have different implementations, different service models, different size organizations. We can't expect necessarily everybody to walk down the center lane. And so, our policy is intentionally written to fit everybody inside. In some places that those lanes are a little tighter where they need to be. But again, that is the challenge, is finding that where the policy can be supported by the community as well as, maintain its purpose of protecting federal information. And, the feedback is, I just can't say enough about that. The stakeholder community is really generous with their feedback. I go to the, quarterly, I go to the Cloud Service Provider Advisory Board and sit with them. And again, it's just really, really cool to hear all the ideas and stuff. And, unfortunately, we can't undertake everything. But we do, kind of keep in our hip pocket those good ideas. And so when we get opportunities to, look at automation or modernization, those are things that we can pull out and think about and really have some really good intellectual discussions on, and how they could potentially be implemented.
Well, that's awesome. So let's just kind of digging into this a little bit more. Again, there's a lot of my background seeing kind of the evolution of it, but in the beginning, right? So taking the communication piece, the beginning of FedRAMP definitely was, I think you had industry excitement, maybe not necessarily agency adoption, right? And I think that's a telltale sign of transformation initiatives, right? As people are starting to modernize, whether they're moving to the cloud, right? Let's take the FedRAMP piece out of it. Whether you're moving to the cloud or you're developing a new system, there's that that inherent friction at the beginning.
Yeah.
What are some things that you would advise folks on, from the if we're modernizing, if we're transforming, how they should kind of approach it?
Yeah. So again, you mentioned it, it's the communication that's a really integral piece. And there's a program that we set up, I believe in the summer of 2020, called the Agency Liaison Program. And basically what it's a voluntary program for agencies to identify a point of contact or two within their agencies to be the FedRAMP subject matter expert within their own house. Okay. We provide periodic training to the agency liaisons. There's a listserv where we blast communications out to them. And, by seeing the growth in participation of that program, that is a fairly decent gauge on how we can tell how agencies are going to adopt or on their way to adoption. And we've seen nothing but growth in that program. Folks contacting the PMO saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. I'm with an agency that's not represented. How can I be a part of this? Because they understand that, that having that direct line into the PMO, it has been incredibly helpful. It helps reduce any, exterior noise that may come out, so you actually get information from the PMO. I can, I can say that the agency liaisons have been incredibly helpful in crafting how the PMO communicates with cloud service providers regarding emergency directives. I'll just use that example. Okay, we have the agency liaisons, and usually, what our standard fare is, we have the cloud service providers, check their systems, make sure that see if they're affected by any particular emergency directive, and then, put some information into their repository. But we also communicate that to the agency liaisons that, hey, you should be on the lookout for this from your cloud service providers. And again, just adding that additional, line of communication out directly to the agencies, to that, one particular point of contact, because sometimes we don't know who in the agency we're talking to or we should be talking to. The agencies have solved that problem for us by having that liaison. So that liaison can go tell the CISO and the authorizing officials and whomever they need to about what's going on with FedRAMP. And then again, we reduce any noise that may come up.
Gotcha. Excellent. So love to hear. I mean, you've got, and again, in kind of your experience, both commercial, federal, technical, project management. Would love to kind of dive in a little bit on just your personal experiences of projects or situations you've been in that, it could lend itself to, people's transformation initiatives. If they were about to undertake, something more complicated or more complex, maybe some personal experiences that you've had, or maybe how you approach those.
Sure. I think, it comes down to, gaining as much information and understanding, what I'm about to step into as possible. Understanding the technology that I'm dealing with, understanding what my customer responsibilities are. That's a huge thing. In cloud is the shared responsibility model. And so, understanding what my role and my responsibility in this whole thing is as well. And I think, just making sure that, we educate the team and ourselves on, anything, and just do basic stuff, some foundational stuff that I learned in the military. Let's do some war gaming. Let's figure out, what could go wrong. Let's walk this through in phases. How are we doing this? That kind of stuff. Personally, that's how I would attack something like that. And again, folks that may have a different education set or something like that, different foundational learning may approach it in a different manner. But, just understanding what I'm getting into and understanding what my responsibilities are, and also who am I reporting to, left, right, up, down, that kind of stuff.
And so I really want to kind of dive in a little bit on the shared responsibility model there. I think that is, we've had conversations on Cloud and Coffee previously about the CX, the customer experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think, again, if you take that in mind, you take in a holistic view. I mean, it is similar to the shared responsibility model, right? Like everybody has a role in the environment, right? That aspect of it is something that I think is also not only core to transformation initiatives, probably core to what FedRAMP was looking at as as it was being stood up, right? The do once, use many aspect of things. So when we're looking at that aspect, does the customer experience tie into to decisions you're making?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, the responsibilities and are tied to it, right? Having that. And one thing that we've done at FedRAMP is, we have a customer responsibility matrix published with our packages. So, we think that's a very helpful tool. So anybody who picks up the package any subsequent agency who wants to use a particular cloud service will be able to see, just exactly what they need to do. I don't have any stats on this, so I won't mention, certainties or anything, but, when that line between, and I'm going to go foundational into basic warfighting principles here, right? Surfaces and gaps. The gaps, the surfaces are those things that the agencies and the cloud service providers are doing to protect federal information from their own aspect, but we need to make sure those gaps are covered, right? And that gap is the overlap between the customer and what the cloud service provider provides with regards to security. But yeah, it's all part and parcel of making sure that, being ultimately responsible and accountable for something is understanding what my responsibilities are. I'm not sure if that quite answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Again, this is about, kind of your views and your experiences. So let's maybe dive into the other hot topic of the FedRAMP, which I would say would be Rev 5, right? The following all of the all of the different aspects of the controls and what's going on. And so
Sure.
what are the big topics on Rev 5 that FedRAMP is what they really want to kind of drive out there?
Yeah, we're really excited about Rev 5 because we've done something kind of revolutionary. Part of the work that was done in last fiscal year in the FedRAMP team was a threat-based control implementation methodology, and basically it's scoring controls against the MITRE threat framework or MITRE attack framework, and to see how well those controls actually do with regards to protect, detect, and respond. And so typically what happened between Rev 3 and Rev 4 was NIST published the Rev 4 baselines. The JAB put a bunch of controls on top that they felt were, important. And so what we've done is we've used this threat-based methodology on those additional controls that were placed on top of the NIST published baselines. And we were able to do an analysis on how well those particular controls do on protect, detect, and respond. And subsequently, we're able to remove a portion of those controls. So the draft baselines that you see, the moderate and the high baselines actually have a net reduction in controls as compared to the Rev 4 version. And so we're able to,
we're easier for the documenting people.
Well, yeah, I'll get to that in a sec, but the important point is the controls that are in the FedRAMP baselines. We have academic rigor to push against to show that these controls are actually worth the squeeze. Oh, okay. And that's important is, we want to make sure that those critical controls are implemented because they're doing the lion's share of the work in terms of protecting against known threats in the MITRE attack framework. And again, this is kind of this is a big step for FedRAMP. It's a result of the hard work that was done by the team to work on this threat-based methodology. The white paper is available on our blogs. If you search through the blogs, and I'm sure it's readily available there. But we use that to formulate those additional controls or decisions on those additional controls above what NIST normally publishes. We did, just to be clear, we didn't touch the NIST baselines that NIST published. We touched the additional controls. We call them the Delta controls in-house. Those Delta controls that are usually added by the Joint Authorization Board. That's the set that we applied the threat-based methodology to. And so, with that, again, able to reduce the number of controls in each baseline, is a step to, making sure that the systems are still secure while potentially help lowering barriers because, there's not as many controls that need to be implemented. There's not as many controls that need to be tested, et cetera, and so forth. And so those went out for public comment. I was in speaking engagements in, the summer of last year saying, yes, we're going to get our draft baselines out by the end of the calendar year. And, kudos to the Herculean effort at the FedRAMP team who was able to do that. They got them out for public comment on the 21st of December. And that public comments period is open until I think the 9th of March or April.
No,
I'm sorry.
No. It's excellent. I mean, I think it, again, I think evolution is key, right? Again, another, I think, testament to the FedRAMP PMO is it is evolving. It is trying to constantly keep up with, with the change in technology, right? We talk a lot about the speed at which, things evolve, from a technical standpoint, and obviously the security and the wrappers and the compliance rigor that has to go with that, especially in the federal space, but obviously in the private sector, it matters as well. And I think you're starting to see, entities just adopt, FedRAMP as the gold standard and go, you know what, my entire environment is FedRAMP, so that way I don't have to change. But when can I, kind of dig in a little bit? When from an evolution standpoint of 4 to 5, when do those start? Like as you roll out 4, are you starting to think about 5, maybe things that didn't get in 4, or
Well,
how does that start in the office?
we're tied in very closely with NIST. Vicky Pilitary and Ron Ross have been amazing partners, and we meet with them periodically. Depending on when they are in the process, more frequently than throughout the year. But we're always working with them to get updates on how things are going. We bounce ideas off of them. They just have been incredible partners with us to in this process. So because we're tied in, we have frequent communications with NIST. We get up to speed on what they're doing and what their initiatives are. So what we can do is we can start our planning as well. And so, honestly, when I joined the PMO in December of 2018, right in the middle of a shutdown, right when we came back to work, we started talking about the Rev 3 or Rev 4 to Rev 5 transition. And so we dusted off our plan from Rev 3 to Rev 4 and started, looking around and, again, doing our communication with NIST and then looking at what other parts of the FedRAMP team were doing with this threat based and seeing it mature and able to incorporate that. And I think, that was it was just a very happy coincidence that the threat-based stuff was mature at the time that we were starting to develop our Rev 5 baselines.
Right. Yeah, and so and that's taking, to your point, taking a next step in the proactive aspect of, right, because I think that one of the big transformation aspects of FedRAMP 10 years ago, well, not just the do once, use many, but it was starting to take what was more shelfware point in time, right, to more continuous, right? Obviously, continuous monitoring, all of that started to evolve now to leveraging a threat base gets more proactive. So I don't know if we can talk a little bit, about kind of that evolution from more of I'm thinking kind of sedentary to less reactive to more proactive in kind of the evolution of FedRAMP. Is, are you, as you get the comments, then that gives you kind of the next phase of not just Rev 5, but even looking into the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the comments are rolling in. I haven't checked recently on how many there are. I know the community was very excited to see the draft baselines, and so I'm sure that there will be a robust set of comments. It's not taking the comments, adjudicating those is one aspect, but also, internally looking at lessons learned on how we did things. We have to turn the mirror inside or turn the lens inside as well, to make sure that the way we went about this was the right way to do it and the most efficient way to do it as well. So it's learning all around. It's not just learning externally from our partners and what their perspectives are, but also taking the lessons learned on how we do stuff inside the PMO that will help make things more efficient as well.
So thank you for that. And I guess now tying it to, I think, what is going on broader in the marketplace, right? Again, timing is everything, and as we see the cyber world, changing. Can you help tie what the executive order, the latest executive order, and how that that has an impact to FedRAMP and kind of that move?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the cyber executive order, we had some specified tasks that were called out for FedRAMP to do. Make sure that we're providing training, in response to stakeholder feedback, transparency and communications, and also automate where we can. And so what we've done is, we're starting to a program to start to automate and modernize FedRAMP as a result of that EO. And so, we're looking at not just, and again, we're building on the foundational transformational type things that were done in FY21, the threat base, the work that our team did with NIST in developing OSCAL and looking at the stuff for package automation and automated validations and stuff like that, and build on that to automate, look where we can automate and modernize elements of the program. If you think about thinking about in a journey map of how a cloud service provider enters the program and all the way through, looking and thinking about where we can apply automation and modernization, not just the package handling, but also, again, looking internally to making our own business processes more efficient.
So if I would probably be scolded by Michaela if I didn't have you spend a little bit of time on OSCAL, if you wouldn't mind. So for those that are either on the CSP side or in industry, ATARC does have an OSCAL pilot that we've been under this pillar that we've been working on with NIST, folks from GSA, industry, really trying to get ahead of the automation. So would you mind spending a little bit of time about maybe just snapshot definition of OSCAL and its impact, because you just recently rolled that out. It was mid last summer, or I might have the COVID. I might have the COVID barriers kind of.
No, I think NIST released 1.0.0 last June. I want to say June 6th sticks in my head for some reason.
Okay, I think you're right. But if you wouldn't mind, because I do think that's a in the world of what I would say the oh dear God factor back in the beginning, right? The SSP and the amount of information that had to be collected, right? And it was, I always used to tell people, it's telling the story of what you say you do, right? So you gotta tell the story about what you say you do, and then you got to validate that you do it. And I think OSCAL takes that to a very neat next stage. So as OSCAL kind of ties in the impacts that you guys might be seeing in FedRAMP.
So not to get too technical, but what OSCAL enables us to do, or what will enable our stakeholders to do as well, is automate the package handling and creation, and also do automated validations. And so the important part of, or why this is so critical, is the fact that as you mentioned, the onerous nature of an SSP, 600-800 pages sometimes, if you're lucky, putting that in an automated fashion where, ultimately the package is going to get validated before it gets handed off to the government, handed off to FedRAMP, is incredibly valuable. And, it takes a lot of the hard detailed work out of it. It's not a panacea in that, there's still work that needs to be done, right? But automating, OSCAL's enabling the automation of some of those tasks, which is going to be incredibly important to our stakeholders and to the government as well, who has to do the assessment, not just FedRAMP, but agencies who have to do the assessment of the packages when they're about to use a cloud service. We have a blog post from, I believe, July of last year that goes into a lot of detail on and provides a lot of resources with regards to OSCAL. So instead of speaking out of school, I would just vector people over there, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
no, and I'll also plug our ATARC pilot. There are a number of OSCAL discussions, webinars, and pilot information on the ATARC website. Again, it has been one of those that I think, again, is a testament to this office, right? Which is engaging industry, engaging folks to the broader aspect of the evolution of cloud and the adoption of cloud, right? And I think this is something that helps tie in the security and gives people a kind of the next level. So I think just a couple of shameless plugs, but I do think that is critical, right? I mean, when you talk about automation, I think that is one of the things. And I think one of the things too that you guys did was just, and you touched on in the beginning, but I think we should touch on it here, is the FedRAMP PMO is very, I guess, data and metric driven, right? I mean, capturing the number of CSPs that have been, capturing the number of 3PAOs, the time frames. I mean, how does that help in kind of the decision making that you guys that you guys have? Is that part of your everyday, the data collection and the information?
Yeah, so the metrics are really important because one of the things that leadership likes to hear is the number of reuse, right? Janelle will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but we're close to 2,800 instances of reuse since the beginning of the program. Okay. And if you think about that in context of an agency not having to do a full-blown assessment on a cloud service every subsequent time, that you can just roll that around in your head a little bit and think of the value that comes from, and that's the value prop of FedRAMP, right? We want it, it's the do once, use many times model. The metrics are incredibly helpful for us because we can see where agencies, cloud service providers, and ourselves are having pain points with regards to getting things authorized, the timelines. If we can dig into particular cloud services and see that there was an issue with package quality, or they missed something that's critical to the FedRAMP authorization. And so I'd like to also use this opportunity to clear up two paths to authorization, right? For folks that are just joining us, going through the joint authorization board or having an agency partner. We don't use the word agency sponsor anymore. We use agency partner or initial authorizing agency. And so the agency will do an assessment using our FedRAMP templates and baselines and send us the ATO. The agencies will accept risk. That's their whole deal, right? When they send the package over to FedRAMP, we need to make sure that there are critical things that are covered in there so that package can be reused by a subsequent agency. Okay. And so sometimes, we look at those things that when we see the packages come in, there may be some stuff that's a little questionable, and they're, in the with regards to external services or their boundary diagram or things of that nature. And, so we track the number of times we have to revisit a package. We don't necessarily publish these numbers because folks want to know, how long is it going to take me to get through FedRAMP? And so we can derive information from that. We can say that our average authorization time for agencies is around 8 months, and for the JAB under 6. And then again, we can dig into those internally and figure out what the deal is. And then also we can formulate training, outreach, having conversations with organizations, the 3PAO community, the agency community, the CSP community, to say, hey, these are things that we're seeing. You should kind of look at these when you're doing your packages, that kind of stuff.
So, and to that point, it just kind of pinged an old memory. When the agent or the PMO moved to, my brain's blanking, FedRAMP ready, Right. So that was I mean, because again, being early stage 3PAO at the time, the company we were with, it was interesting to get the number of people that thought they were cloud based, right? But is the FedRAMP ready still something that is used or guided, especially for those maybe that are on the commercial side wanting to come in? That is a good kind of, well, let me take a look at this, right? See
Yeah.
what we do. Is that something that you still see being discussed and encouraged and leveraged?
Yeah, absolutely. So FedRAMP Ready is a requirement if you're going through the JAB, and it's a requirement for you before you can even kick off. But for the agency side, it's not. However, if a cloud service wants to dip their toe into the government market and see what kind of interest they can get, one of the things we hear about is, well, they can't sell to the government unless they get on the FedRAMP marketplace, and they can't get on the FedRAMP marketplace unless they have a government customer. We do have a method for that, and cloud service providers who don't have an initial authorizing agency or a partner, government partner, can achieve a FedRAMP Ready. And their listing will be put up on our marketplace as FedRAMP Ready. And the thing about that is that demonstrates a commitment to, any potential customers that cloud service provider is serious about, achieving the FedRAMP authorization, and they're committed to do so in order to satisfy any requirements an agency may have.
Yeah, which again, I know I keep beating this drum, but I think for folks that are listening and folks that are thinking about it, this is some of the transformation, some of the evolution ideas that the FedRAMP PMO has really kind of adopted to help the client. So I'm a fan as much as as a participant in a lot of this, and I do think that was critical, because I know at the time there was a big burden of information coming into a relatively small PMO back in the day, and that was originally, and I don't remember if it had an initial name. I think it's always been FedRAMP Ready, but I do know that was a way to, hey, before you even come or have somebody spend a lot of money, take a look at this, start looking, walking through it, and so I just a compliment to another aspect of the FedRAMP PMO. So we did get a question from Christian. Will the requirements in the federal zero trust strategy be incorporated into FedRAMP?
So the part we played in that, as part of the executive order, we had a consultative role in that, and what we provided was our authorization boundary guidance. It was still in draft form, and there's still some issues that we're working out internally and with our partners in the JAB and OMB about the use of external services. But that is what we've contributed to that effort, and our baselines would reflect any of those requirements.
Thank you. So I want to kind of, one of the things that we talk a lot about here, and even with Bill Hunt not being on, is the cloud smart aspect, and FedRAMP is a big part of that. And so as you look at organizations and the EOs and all of the I guess the different aspects of cloud, right? I mean, FedRAMP becomes this the hub of kind of all things cloud security. I mean, you've got large programs, CDM and others that are out there, but this really has become kind of the gold standard. And so I guess in that world of the FedRAMP as the gold standard in cloud security, what are some of the things that you encourage other organizations, either states or commercial compliant entities? Do those come into discussion at any time?
Actually, FedRAMP baselines are seen as the most stringent compliant frameworks. You mentioned that there are some entities that absolutely default, or that just default to the FedRAMP baselines. Anecdotally, I can tell you I've had I've heard that same thing from other cloud service providers, to say, look, we have to do this for FedRAMP. It's a lift, but it will basically cover us. So we're gonna turn our entire enterprise into something that matches these baselines. State and local governments, even foreign governments have contacted FedRAMP, and we've provided some information to them. I even gave a brief to the World Bank on how FedRAMP does our thing with regard to cloud services, and so other industries and financial services, energy sector have also replicated the standards based on FedRAMP. And so I think saying it's a gold standard is absolutely true, and it's a proven proven framework.
Yeah, and I think the biggest key that I see in kind of the evolution and CDM being part of it, but this was probably one of the the drivers, right, is the continuous monitoring, because I've always felt that especially when it comes to kind of the security compliance aspect, right? Again, you're suggesting that people write about what they what they say they do, right? And organizations may do one thing, but if in the past it was a 3-year audit, the organization evolved and you may not have updated. The continuous monitoring aspect is key. Is that one of the things that gets discussed besides the stringent aspects of the controls?
Yeah, and some folks are actually surprised, who some folks who aren't familiar with FedRAMP or RMF or anything like that, kind of shocked when I tell them that, yeah, there's a requirement to continually monitor the system to make sure that what the entity is doing is what they're actually doing to protect your information in the system. And so continuous monitoring is a crucial aspect of this. And so when we talk about modernization, we talk about transforming business processes, one of the things that we're looking at is how to do continuous monitoring more efficiently. That is a very, very large burden to do with 200, even
Right.
just look at the JAB catalog of about 45. That's a very large burden to do. And so now is the time to leverage those great things that have been done with regards to the threat based and the implementation of OSCAL to automate and modernize some of those activities. And that absolutely falls in line with our modernization initiatives, where we want to continue to grow and scale the program. Well, we can't do that if we have onerous burdens weighing our human resources down from getting things done in a timely manner for cloud services. Transforming processes and promote knowledge sharing. The knowledge and the experiences that we gain, we share with our stakeholder community continues to be important.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna ping you on that, because having been on the supporting a client that tried to bring or brought automation ideas to you guys, it definitely became a community, right? Almost that built-in ISAC aspect of FedRAMP, that hey, this is a benefit that this CSP or this 3PAO brought, and it becomes a community. And so in that aspect of it, obviously I'd love to dive a little bit more into automation, but that community sharing piece, how has that, because there are folks in the industry that hey, we want to make it as as an entity successful, but then it is a natural instinct, right, in industry to also be protective. So the community sharing aspect is, I think, a huge transformational type aspect of modernization. And so how do you guys manage that effectively?
Well, I think that spirit exists in FedRAMP, and because and something that I try and share with stakeholders, irrespective of where they come from, agencies, cloud service providers, three PAOs, any other reps from industry or other other government entities, it's about collaboration. Protecting federal information is a team sport. Okay. And everybody's got their role. There are checks and balances involved. We got to make sure that you're doing the right thing to protect federal information, but we can do it collaboratively. And, I mentioned earlier in our session here about the JAB Interact that we had in November of 19. What was really amazing for me to see is you had cloud service providers, you had reps from all different cloud service providers that were in direct competitors. And, the cool thing about it is we're all talking together about how to solve the same problem. Okay. How do we make continuous monitoring less onerous on cloud service providers? How do we make it less onerous on the JAB, for instance? And to see, representatives from cloud service providers that would be normally that are competing with each other, working together with the PMO and the JAB to talk about how we solve these sticky problems. That exists already. And that is one of the really cool things that I got out of that event.
Well, which again, I think a testament to the PMO, and I think you actually nailed it there, that the protecting the federal information is a team sport, and I love that. That actually should be the mantra. So we got another question here from Jacob. In the commercial world, SOC 2 Type 2 is the de facto cloud security standard. You see the deficiencies in SOC 2 that prevent SOC 2 from being the standard for federal as well? I mean, when as a compliance guy, I always saw, we always looked at it from the overlap of controls. So let me try to help evolve this a little bit, Jacob. We always saw the overlap of controls, right? That if on the federal side, the SOC 2, I think, had the more of the physical, some of the logical, but FedRAMP kind of had, that was to back to the gold standard, right? That was the one that you really kind of needed to really kind of dive into the broad perspective, right? So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit to SOC 2, but
that's something that we looked into. We were tasked to actually look into, not particularly to SOC 2, but it was a tasking that came out of the executive order to look and see what other compliance frameworks may or what they, how they overlap with FedRAMP. And so theoretically, we haven't necessarily found one that covers them all, or one that answers all the mail with FedRAMP. And what we could conceivably see happen is a cloud service who comes into FedRAMP with certain things. This is not what we're doing now, so don't everybody run off and say, oh, let's do this. But conceivably what we could do is see what compliance frameworks they do meet, and do a mapping between the FedRAMP requirements and see what they're capable of doing. But right now, there's no intention or no path to accepting other compliance frameworks in lieu of.
Yeah, but Jacob, I'll follow that up with kind of a industry, and having been there, done that from the compliance and development standpoint as both a 3PAO and helping organizations get ready for their 3PAO authorization and that process, or continuous monitoring, it is a start, right? If you have other compliance, SOC 2, HIPAA, et cetera, those are starting points to get to FedRAMP. But what we have typically seen is the depth and level and number of controls. FedRAMP far exceeds any of the others. And so I think, it is something that, if you have to meet standards for different compliance controls, that there is a, hey, if you write to a FedRAMP, you're usually writing to a little bit more detail than what the other pieces need. So hopefully that helps. So I want to kind of finish with, the gold standard, some of the new things, new entities coming in, right? Because if you've been in the CSP and you've been in this in a while, moving to OSCAL is an effort, right? I think there's definite interest to speed up and improve that. Automation and kind of the continuous monitoring is, these are all, one of the big challenges I know in the very beginning, and I know had many conversations with Maria and then Matt back in the day, were the expense on industry, right? It's adjusted where that is. But if you are coming in, right, there's FedRAMP ready, but there are things that you, if you are starting from scratch, should really kind of make sure you understand all the pieces, right? So I'll spout them off and I'll let you kind of dive in. But the FedRAMP ready is definitely a good step. Understanding the OSCAL and understanding how to invest in the continuous monitoring afterwards or prior to, right? I mean, there's nothing that stops you from that continuous monitoring approach ahead of time. So are there other things that, that new folks coming in should think about?
Yeah, we have a wealth of information on FedRAMP.gov. We launched a redesigned website back in almost a year ago, and the way the information is broken down is if you're a cloud service provider, if you're a 3PAO or an agency, you can go in there and see what your responsibilities are. We have documentation that outlines that. But again, talking a little bit about understanding what your responsibilities are, what technology you're dealing with, what's going to be asked of you is incredibly important. Figuring out. And I like your comment too about understanding the continuous monitoring requirement before you go down that road, because that is such a critical thing, is to make sure that cloud service providers are protecting federal information and continue to. And it's that requirement that the agencies or the JAB have, post authorization. And again, having a broad understanding, looking through the documentation. All of our documentation is open source. We don't hide anything. We don't have anything that we have to email to you upon your request. I believe that pretty much everything that anybody could need is available on our FedRAMP.gov website, and so it's there. And of course, if you have questions, contact the PMO, info@FedRAMP.gov, and we have a staff of great professionals, both Govy and contractor, that will sit down and lay out some details for you as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even tied to OSCAL and everything else. There's code available. There's lots of
exactly.
Right. If you want to get geeky or techie, there is a lot of available capabilities out there, and it is. Again, I consider it a gold standard, personally, professionally, to other agencies and kind of that engagement with industry as well as other entities, just to learn and understand and collaborate. So I'm going to kind of hit you with, we've got about 4 minutes left. Going to hit you with the kind of the last question. In the world of let me get so this is an interesting one. So from Peter, since FedRAMP is a tough process for small businesses, what is GSA doing to help them through the process?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate that. And so we're cognizant that we need to make sure that we eliminate or lower barriers to entry into the program without lowering the bar. And sometimes we don't want those two to be in conflict with each other. Lowering the barriers for small businesses to get in without lowering the standards. Because we all have to protect federal information. We don't want those two to be in conflict with each other. And so, we've met frequently, or we've met on several occasions with organizations of small businesses in order to find out what their pain points are. About a third of our offerings come from small businesses that are presently in our catalog, but there's certainly more conversations that we can have around that. And I would be interested to hear thoughts from reps from small businesses on how we can do just that.
Yeah, and I can, Peter, give you advice. I think understanding how, if a small business is building a platform, understanding one of the big things that FedRAMP did, and again, I might sound like a little bit of a sales pitch for FedRAMP, but there was thought in this, taking care of the infrastructure as a service, the platforms in the beginning, does help that if you are going to build something, make sure you're building it in a platform that has that certification, because there is that inheritance that then as you look at some of the, the development of the controls, et cetera, you're building with kind of that mentality of DevSecOps. I do believe that is that's advice that I have given folks in the past, and it is something that I think will help will help some small businesses, especially as they enter the market. So, well, I was going to hit you with a 4-minute kind of what other priorities do you have for 2022? I mean, we've got about 2 minutes. If there's anything that we missed today, I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, we're again stepping off on a modernization and automation effort, which we're looking to take those foundational things that we did in FY21 with regards to OSCAL and threat based, and build on those, kind of relay a foundation for the next several years. The last significant process change we saw was in with the FedRAMP Accelerated, but now we have the opportunity to come around again and take some of those things that we learned and that we've developed and start applying those, not just for CSPs, agencies, and 3PAOs, but also our own internal business processes. We want to continue to grow the program. Like the question was about small businesses, how do we, let's look at how we can lower barriers to entry in. And also, the thing that we're going to do that I think we started out the conversation with is knowledge sharing. We understand that there's a lot of knowledge in the agencies and the industry community that we can leverage, and we want to make sure that we're actively seeking that information, either through folks reaching out to us or through engagements like this, other speaking engagements, conferences, that kind of thing.
Great. Well, thank you. We're out of time. I really appreciate the time you spent today and walking through. I thank everybody that was able to join and for the questions. And Kirsten, I know we'll want to grab a little snapshot picture here, but we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. And again, FedRAMP has a lot of information. ATARC has a lot of information around FedRAMP and some of their automation initiatives. But Brian, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you for having me. Thank you to ATARC for sponsoring this too.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Kirsten, did you want to?
Yep. Smile. 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.